Hey everyone, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Okay, let's get started. I'm Kayla Lim. I'm part of your community leaders for the Seoul Startups community, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here tonight. I'm just gonna re-angle my laptop a little bit. We have Jason, Darren, and Michael with us, and we'll get to intros in just a second. I'm really excited to dive into the conversation, but I know I'm responsible for taking care of some housekeeping items. Just a couple things before we go straight in. First one, the conversation tonight will be recorded. It is recording. I see it. And it will go out in the recap email that you'll have in your inboxes the next couple of hours. We are probably going to speak for 30, 40 minutes, and then we'll go back to the table breakouts where you can meet the speakers individually. And lastly, the live chat is for you to use and ask any questions that you have for the panel tonight. We would love to hear from you. We want to take your comments and your questions and your curiosities to this conversation. And with that, if it's your first time using AirMeet, as it is some of ours, really want you to enjoy the platform, experiment with it, press all the buttons, not the speakers. I want you guys to be safe and make sure you stay logged on. Before the attendees, go ahead and play around and enjoy. It's so much better than Zoom. And without further ado, let's go straight in to meet who we have tonight. So we have Jason, Michael, and Darren. I'm gonna let each of you guys introduce yourself, maybe start with what got you into the startup scene, what you're doing today, and if you or your company personally invest. We'll start with Jason first.
Hey guys, I'm Jason. I'm currently the Director of Global Ventures at QuotaBook. It's a cap table management solution for VCs and startups. For me, I founded 2 startups, I exited my second one. Then I was in a venture capital industry for a few years. And then I was at WeWork and the in-house venture team at WeWork Labs. And then now I'm a part of an angel group called Next Stream Angels, where our average check size is around 1 to 300K USD. And we recently invested in about 8 to 9 startups just in 2020, I believe. Yeah, that's about.
And you're based in Korea, right, Jason?
Yes.
Are you in Seoul?
I am in Seoul, in Gangnam.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. All right, Michael, good evening.
Hi, thank you for kind of inviting me to this event, and it's great to be here and see almost 50 people here, which is pretty cool too. So to give you a background of who I am, I started my career out in the financial kind of doing investment banking and kind of consulting. And then I came to Korea kind of doing the same thing. And after a while, kind of figured out I wanted to start my own company. And so I did that. And I ventured into another startup. And then that's where I really got into more of the funding area. And so I had a kind of financial background and a startup background. So it made sense to kind of go into the venture capital world. And I was interesting to see to see startups on the other side of the table where I was just a couple of months ago. And so I definitely feel for the startups, and I'm just not a regular just investor, but I try to understand where the startups are coming from. In terms of where I work now, I work at a venture capital firm called DTN Investments based out of Seoul. We are technology agnostic. We are a tips program partner. We'll do anything as low as 2K to up to, series pre-A, B, C levels. And so anything interesting, I'll take a look at it and see where we can go forward from there. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. And hey, Darren.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me as well. And great to be connected with everyone here. So a little bit of background. In the past, I've worked with 3 different VCs in Singapore, Taiwan, and Indonesia to be invest from seed all the way to late stages. And then after that, I joined a startup, a China Sequoia-backed startup in the Series B stage, helped them to raise 20 million for their Series C, as well as to expand the business outside of China into 30 markets in Asia and the Middle East. And right now, I'm actually based in Korea. I joined Big Bang Angels, and we are one of the first few early stage VCs and accelerators founded in Korea since 2012. And since then, we have invested in over 80 companies. And at the beginning, we focused more towards, we are more general agnostic, platform, e-commerce, entertainment, etc. But right now, since the recent 3-4 years, we started to shift our focus more towards the AI, healthcare, deep tech, agri-tech, sustainability kind of industries. So for anyone that's in this startup, regardless it's Korean startups or global startups that wants to expand into the Korean market, happy to be connected.
You know, when I did the background checks on our panelists, they all come from incredibly diverse backgrounds, as you've all heard tidbits just now. There were two things that I found in common ground. The first one being all three gentlemen have attended university outside of Korea. I believe, Jason, you came from UC Irvine, and then Michael from American University, and Darren, you went to school in the UK. And all three also have corporate and strategy or business development backgrounds, so kind of giving you that sharper edge on how businesses are built. But for the audience tonight, I want them to meet you as the person and the human being of who you are. So on your LinkedIn profiles, you each lead with a really special quote, and I pulled one that I thought really spoke to me and will resonate with the people we have tonight. We'll start with Darren. You're the last one to speak. So in your bio, you lead with the first question of, what's life if you're not enjoying it? So one, maybe explain that philosophy a little bit, and what do you think the founders tonight can take away from that?
Okay, so that quote or question has been on my LinkedIn for the since 4 or 5 years ago, and I just didn't change it, I just leave it as it is. But it's still kind of relevant to everyone. Still something that we should ask ourselves, because at the end of the day, all of us, we have a common destination, which is death, right? 40 years old, 50, 60, 70, eventually, some younger, some older, but eventually we all die. And time passes so fast, like in just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, in the blink of an eye, time just passes, and you see your parents grow older as well. So we are given this limited amount of time in our life. So this is something that I usually ask myself, like, what do I truly want to do in my life? I spend a lot of time really exploring and thinking, sitting down, thinking, reflecting, what do I truly want to do? Yeah, so I highly encourage everyone here, if you don't know what you truly want to do, really take some time to think about it. And a couple of months back, I also read a book by Mae Musk. So Mae Musk is the mom of Elon Musk. And I want to see how she can create a creature like Elon Musk, right? And one of her quotes is that she said, live dangerously, carefully. Make a plan, take a chance, right? So basically two things. One is to figure out what you truly want to do. And then second, design and craft the life that you want to be, right? Just work towards it. Yeah, so this is for everyone out there. And this leads me to your second question, which is for founders, not just founders, but aspiring founders. If you want to start a company, it's not an easy feat to do. It's not like a 1 month project, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. You have to be prepared to stay for at least 5 years, right? So it's a huge chunk of your life, and you will face many ups and downs, many rejections from investors, from business partners, operational problems, employees leaving you, and all this. So you need to have the underlying motivation. Why are you starting this startup, right? This fire underlying beneath you is the thing that will drive you during the tough time. Of course, it's not necessary. You can drive through your own willpower, but that's very, very tough. Not many people can do it. So with the underlying motivation and fire, that really helps a lot. This is something that I guess founders or aspiring founders, I think you should really think a lot about.
Yeah, like falling in love with the process and not being tied to the end result.
Just to follow your vision.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask one of my community leaders to find the book by Elon Musk's mom and drop it in the chat. I know we have a lot of Musk fans on the call today, and I'm kind of interested in what she wrote. So thank you, Darren, for that plug. For Jason, your quote, I also loved. It's from your Next Site feature that you were in. And the powerful quote is, the fact that there are no limits. So I understand that, and I love it, but maybe explain a little bit on the story behind it, and is it a mindset that you use when you invest?
I mean, honestly, I think that quote was like a few years ago. I think I was a lot more younger.
Everyone has these outdated quotes. Next
Yeah.
time, like we're going to end this call with quotes you live by today. We'll make full circle.
Yeah, but essentially it's YOLO, right? Meaning, it doesn't mean you do something crazy per se, but you have to live to the fullest. So, for example, for me, my background's in public health and bio. Then I founded a startup in commerce. Then was in venture capital. Then was in real estate with WeWork. Now in fintech, and then even an MBA. So, it's just not being in just one place. It's being able to go through the different kinds of limits, no boundaries, right? So for me, when talking about, like investment strategies, which will be, mentioned a little bit more in detail later, you have to understand that life can take you in so many different ways. And as a founder, focus on the moment here and there. But when something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. So for me, like I like to always encourage founders and people to just always keep moving forward. And then that if something happens, then find different routes, pivot if you have to, but don't panic, right? So for me, that's me in a nutshell.
For a very chaotic landscape, I appreciate that the message is like keep calm and just keep going. All right, Michael. The one on your profile is from your firm, DTNI, and it's the main philosophy of, and I'm gonna let you correct me if I pronounce it wrong, Ubuntu?
I guess it's Ubuntu. I don't know. I actually don't know either. But the meaning behind it's interesting.
Yes. I'm gonna drop the definition in the chat while I Google it. But it's unique for a company in Korea to take in that kind of word and quote, but maybe explain why your company adopted it, what the story is behind it, because I'm super curious.
Yeah, so I think my CEO, I think he's not like a regular kind of, he started from as a grunt in this industry, and now he's been in this industry for almost 20 plus years. And so his overall goal is to grow not only the venture, the financial kind of industry, but also the startup ecosystem. And the reason is, I think we have a parent company, and my CEO, he invested in that company when he was at another VC firm, and he helped that company go public, and then now the chairman of that company asked my current CEO if he would be interested in kind of leading the venture capital arm. And so it continues that cycle of, he invested in a company, now he runs a VC with that company. And so the whole point of the whole I am because you are, which is the meaning behind Ubuntu, is, because of startups, venture capital is here, and it continues. And that's the relationship that we have overall with, when we are fundraising, even now, that we continue to reach out to these companies that we've helped go public, and then they help in return kind of do the fundraising for us and become one of our LPs. And it's just that continual cycle of, growing and helping startups and eventually helping, this sector as well. And so, we're only here because of the startups themselves.
And when you decide to invest in startups, or when any of you guys decide to invest in startups, moving on to the next question, what are some signals or good indicators that show that you're ready to invest? Like, what are you looking for from your standpoint? And I'll let whoever wants to speak first go ahead and take it. But don't all go at once.
I mean, the first thing is I usually just get IR decks. So that's how I kind of filter out the
IR decks.
Yeah. So it's basically company introductions, and it really depends on what stage the companies are. And I could tell by, how the IR deck is formed, and, how comfortable or where they are actually in terms of actually speaking with investors. And so if they're all over the place, it's like, kind of push it over to the side. But if they're on point and they're like, if they're pre-revenue or they have revenue or you know, where depending on which KPIs they're looking at, and they get to the point. I literally read, you know, 30, 40 IR decks per day out of all my schedule, and it's exhausting. And so if the IR decks aren't clear and concise, it just I have to put them on the side and then get back to them later. But usually the way I like investing and the way that I got invested myself is, I don't think money is the key to any problem. It should help you grow your company, and that's the point of investing. And sometimes founders get confused, saying, you know, should we get investment or not? But at the end of the day, you know, you're doing well, but the fund that you receive, it's going to help you expand and grow that much quicker, and that's where you're focused on, and why you should get funding in the first place. That's my 2 cents.
I know, I love that. And because we're doing so much more through email and like virtual calls and not getting to meet in person, like present decks, what makes a good deck to you? Like, is there a length that where if it's more than this many slides, you're like, absolutely not, no time for this? Is it more pictures than text, or like, what's your gut check tell you, like, this is a good IR deck?
It's like some IR decks have 30 pages, and after reading 30 pages, I have no idea what they're doing. And so, so that's kind of the thing. Like, I don't know what their business model, I don't know what the revenue stream is after 30 slides. It's like, so it's very simple. There's a formula to this, and it's not too hard. But as these early founders continue to meet investors, it's going to get refined more and more. And so by the time hopefully the IR deck comes to me, it's a little bit more clear and concise. And so that's when I'll take a deeper look and say, oh, they must be ready to kind of go on to the next step.
Okay, so Michael's eyes are for the pretty and polished decks, everybody. You want them to be clean and concise, easy to consume. Jason and Darren, what about you guys? What are some things that you look for when a startup is wanting to invest or wanting to be invested in? And also your opinion on decks, like that. I think that's important to hear.
For me, and there's a lot of checklists, right? Before you invest, you got to do a lot of different things, due diligence, to see if the business is viable and such. But for me, the biggest signal is, just think of it as like a baton. When you're in a race, right? Being able to pass that off to like the investor or the associate, and then having them being able to convince to the partners, saying that, hey, we should invest, we should take a look into this account. So for me, that's the biggest signal, is being able to kind of get to that stage. And like, Michael mentioned, it's, if you meet founders here and there and see that this company is growing, the IR deck is very clean, and there's like 0 questions, it's just getting people excited more often than not, then I think that's the biggest signal. And then our job as associates, or even as a partner in an investment firm, is to convince other partners to give the okay for the investment. So having all the remedy of allowing people to convince the people internally is a signal.
So if you send them a deck, people should keep in mind that you're going to run with that to then champion it on their behalf to your stakeholders.
Exactly. So like, for example, let's say you're reading a book, right? And then people ask you if that was a great book or not. And if you say, hey, that's a great book, then nobody's going to read it. But if you kind of give them more in detail, right, a summary, in an easy way to explain all that, then it becomes a lot easier. So when, for example, when people refer me to some startups, I ask them, oh, what do they do and such. If they say, oh, you should just meet this person, then, it's probably not right. But if they tell me about the business, like a one-liner or even like a 2-minute pitch on behalf of that company, it gives me the picture of what the company is trying to do, what kind of problems they're trying to solve. So that way I can do the same thing to my other partners, right? To convince them in that way. So I think getting to that point is the biggest step for any startups.
Memorable elevator pitches. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Jason. Darren, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so Michael and Jason raised a very good point. In simple terms, is help us to help you, right? Because it's our job to pitch to our partners or maybe even to our investment committees or LPs to invest in this company. So we need your help to give us the best information for your investments. And how I personally see, it depends whether are you early stage or late stage startups. If you are early stage startups, like maybe seed to Series A, for me, I'll look more towards three things. One, I'll look towards the team. Because as I said in the beginning, starting a startup is not easy. I really want to know the motivation that you're trying to do. Why are you trying to start this startup? What kind of problems are you solving and why, right? And do you have the capabilities to make it happen for the team? Okay. Then, and the second thing is for the problem. What kind of problems are you solving right now? Is it a problem that truly needs to be solved, or is it just a problem that you want to solve but nobody will want to pay for it, right? And also, is the problem huge enough? This is the third thing, which is the market size. Is there a huge enough market size for us VCs to get excited? Because VC, after all, we need to have financial gain, right? We need to see like not just 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 5 times returns. We are hoping to get like 1,000 times, 10,000 times exponential returns, right? So these are the three things that I look for early stage startups. And then for late stage startups, we'll be definitely look more towards the qualitative side, your growth rate, your traction, the key metrics, and are you able to reach that growth? Let's say if you can grow, for me personally, I like at least 3 times growth per year, right? And then if you say you can grow at least 3 times, how are you going to do it? If you give me a very feasible plan on specific plan, how you're going to do it. And also the second thing is about market size. I like founders who understand their market size very well, because it shows like how you're going to acquire this group of people. It's not just the entire market size. You know specifically who you're targeting. It shows like you understand the market, you understand your business and how you're going to do it. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
So how, in your lens, what is a late stage startup?
I'm sorry?
How would you look at a late stage startup? Is that like raising their Series C or Series B round?
Usually it's Series B and above, where they are building and growing their companies. When they already have a product ready and they just want to expand, maybe globally or maybe in Korea, or maybe expanding new products or new features. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then for the presenter behind the deck, a question came in from the audience. Do you think that age matters when they're fundraising? For instance, we could do a fire round and some explanations. Would you invest in a startup of a teenager? Do you guys see age, or are you just like anyone's a player at this table?
For young people, actually, I'm quite familiar with some friends in Singapore who are starting this kind of entrepreneurship programs, incubators, and all for young teenagers, right?
Oh.
It depends on which country as well, because especially Asian countries is very there's a lot of problems faced by the family. They want you to go through the proper route, take the university. So you may back the young children, but I mean you may believe in their ideas and everything. But at the end of the day, due to family pressure and not able to raise following rounds, because usually Asian investors will want to look at the credentials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like top universities, do you have the past experiences, blah, blah, blah. So it may be a very good idea, it may be a very good thing, but if you're not able to raise the following round and not be against the family pressure and all, then it might be quite tough to do it. I mean, I like it, but whether can I do it, that's a separate question.
Okay, so emotionally bought in, but you're not sure if you're financially bought in yet. Michael or Jason, thoughts on this? Would you invest in a startup run by a teenager, or is age taken into account when you decide to make an investment?
I don't know. I think everyone's a player at this table, whether you're a teenager or not. But it's very hard to give you a sense. There's always going to be trustability, credibility kind of issues. Mm-hmm. Where are they? It's always about, can they even do this full time? Can they, how serious are they? But at the end of the day, if they're making revenue, if they're making, at the end of the day, for me, I'm an investor. If I put my money in there and I feel like I could do it with 3, 4, 5x kind of return on that, I don't mind investing. And, and then later on, catch him when he's young, and then have the opportunity to invest in him at another kind of point in the stage. And then, so, I mean, I think as long as, you know, they have the certain kind of KPIs that I'm looking for, I'll take a look and see, you know, how we can kind of discuss further.
I've even heard I heard about this concept of like belief capital. Like even if founders can hear from people of higher credibility than they are saying, I believe in you and your idea, like they run with that. You know, it kind of gives them that confidence. Like, okay, this person who does these great things believes in me, they actually increase their chances to go and like pitch themselves louder. So it's not money, but it's belief that can get exchanged.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's not even for just teenagers. That's just overall. Like even if like you're 40 years old and someone says as an investor, I think you have a great idea, and let me push you, and you know, I'll introduce you to all my kind of investors, and it empowers those individuals to do more than they would, you know, if they didn't hear those kinds of words of encouragement. And so that's a great kind of example. But at the end of the day, I'm really interested in just kind of seeing how, as an investor, you know, if I do invest, where can I add value to that organization? Mm-hmm. So if I can kind of help them in turn, whether they're teenagers or, you know, 40 plus, get them to the next round, 3 to 5 years, get them to public. That's my kind of ultimate goal.
Gotcha. Nice. Thank you, Michael. Jason, thoughts, opinions?
It's the same. I think age for me, like honestly, is not the biggest factor. It's definitely a plus if you have more experience, right? But just because you're whatever young doesn't mean that you're not gonna get funding.
Mm-hmm.
Example will be, I mean, I can only speak for Korea, but you know, like a company called Class 101. I think there's like 5-6 founders, and those guys are all from college. You know, they're all college students right now. So there's that company. There's also a company, I forget the name, but they just sold to one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in Korea. And then he was, I think, 22, I believe, and college dropout too. So it doesn't mean that it's, you know, it's pretty rare, just looking at the numbers itself, but it's doable.
Class 101. Marta, thank you so much for dropping that in the chat. I also just Googled it. All right, let's take the next question from the audience. This is a unique one. So we have Jules, who used to work for the National Defense. You're the first person I've ever met to work for National Defense. That's really awesome. Do you know whether a foreigner is allowed to start a company in this sensitive field? I'm assuming they also mean in Korea. So I'm not sure which sectors you guys each dabble in, but any quick opinions on if you think a foreigner is allowed to start a company in the sensitive field of working for the national defense?
For me, because I'm in fintech right now, anything that deals with government regulations, I try to stay away from it, because it's not the business idea that's going to fail per se, but just regulation and those things, it always gets in the way. So if possible, try to kind of stay away from it, or find a different way to kind of get viable. So for example, in fintech, one of the most highly regulated parts is when there's any, I think it's monetary or securities that are issued or transferred or exchanged, right? If you are maybe just servicing like information per se, then that's fine. But if you're actually dealing with something related to money, then you might have to go through some regulations. When it comes to information, though, it really depends on how confidential or how private it can be. So I think if you do enough due diligence, I'm sure there are some ways. But for me, if you don't have experience, then for me, just kind of stay away from it for now. If possible, maybe join a startup in a similar industry and learn more in detail. But yeah, that would be my advice.
I think that's sound. I think you nailed it on the head. Darren or Michael, any thoughts?
So I kind of did a review of drone companies.
Companies?
So they have to have like national security clearances to do, if they're looking at installing these military bases and it's doing inspections on these sites, they do have to have it's very heavily regulated. And I don't know too much about because the founders were all Korean, but I do know that they had national security clearances for those kinds of things. So I don't know, as a founder, maybe you can have some of your employees be have the clearance as well. But I agree with Jason at the same time. It takes a long time to get these sandboxes in place. There's a lot of push and lobbying, and by the time it gets there, you're going to be found with, if it is a competitive market, you're going to have new players, and so you're going to have to evolve anyway. So that's something that I tend to shy away from as well. It's not the capability of the team, but it's really just a heavily regulated sector.
So it sounds like it's totally possible for Jules and just the audience, but be warned that it could move slow just because you're working with the government. Yeah. Okay. Darren, do you have any opinions, or are you with the group here?
Yeah, I'm with the group. And yeah, ultimately it depends what's the regulation, what's the requirement of the whatever subsectors that they are focusing on.
Yeah.
So if they require a local person to be on board, or maybe at least own 51% of the company, maybe you have to find a partner in Korea or in the specific country that you want to expand in, and create a joint venture or something that could possibly work. But as Jason and Michael say, it's highly, highly regulated. So make sure you check the requirements.
Oh no, you went mute.
Oh yeah, sorry. So for most importantly for us investors is ultimately what's the chances of you getting those contracts, right? If you find a ways to go, if the risk of you getting the contract, maybe like 80% chance of you getting a contract, that could be a risk that we can live with. So we might potentially still invest in you if you can convince us that this is there definitely still be risk, but lower risk investments that we can make.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. That one felt a little bit like a curveball to me, so I appreciate it that you've each given your opinion. I'm going to combine two of the questions from the audience into one, and it's following up from Michael about what he looked like for an IR Dex. It's asking, like, what KPIs do you guys look for? But the question I want to ask you is, what are, including KPIs, like in general, what are like good green flags you've seen in pitch meetings? Maybe give one example of something great you've seen. And then if you can match it with an example of a red flag or something that's an absolutely negative factor that throws you off when you're hearing from a company in the first meeting. So best practice and like a worst practice in terms of pitch meetings. And I guess, in Michael, if you want to include what kind of KPIs you usually look for.
I think it's all different depending on the sectors. So I guess for like e-commerce stuff, it would be good. I would like to see continual kind of growth on month over month in the GMV, the gross merchandising value, to grow over. And there's a lot of SKUs that's growing as well. It would be great.
Like the item numbers?
Yeah, or the number of items that it continues to grow on top. Like it would be like CAC, LTVs. It would just to see how many users are on board, MAUs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I just look at the big numbers like GMV. Is this making sense, and is it a great market fit? In terms of the deck itself, if it's pre-revenue, I don't mind just seeing under 12 slides, just addressing what the pain points are, what the market is, what the solution is, and how big the market is. On a global and a local scale. And for me, so I do 70-30 kind of deals, like 70% of all my deals, I try to do cross-border investments, and 30% of the Korean deals, I try to identify founders and teams that can really go overseas And so that's where my strength is in terms of investors and the networks that I have. And so do they have the ability, if I can take them to wherever, can they survive in that kind of landscape? And then, I mean, of course, I'll do the soft landing for them. But in the meantime, if I provide them the opportunity, can they do fundraising wherever they are? So those are kind of questions that I keep in mind.
Do you also expect the market to move with them, or are you just looking for investors abroad, but their market is still based in Korea?
No, I would like them to use Korea as a test bed, making sure there's a product fit and that it works well, and leverage that success, whether that's a POC or some other kind of endeavor, making sure that you have that brand name of whoever your partner is, and they be able to leverage that success into wherever you're truly kind of targeting. And then in the meantime, we do have partners where I can link them up and do soft landing, making sure that they have a distribution channel, making that they have partnerships right as soon as they land, and then they can continue to kind of grow their company that way. And then as they continue to grow in the kind of behind the scene, I'll talk with all of my kind of the investors and wherever they are, and then I'll try to kind of reach out and say, I have this company, would you be interested in speaking with them? So I kind of prep them. I also prep them again in the IR deck as well. And so I kind of hold their hands going to the individual meetings with them.
Yeah, really embodying that I am because you are. So it sounds like that really close-knit relationship that you look to build from the beginning. So best practices are good and what to build in, but I do want to hear your opinion on what to absolutely not do as well.
I think we as an investor, we're all human, and at the end of the day, we invest and we have to manage those companies and kind of making sure, whether they don't have, we don't have the best ideas, but at the same time, you don't want to be too stubborn. And I've seen kind of investors, I think the worst kinds of founders are like the know-it-alls. I think, they're stubborn and they're know-it-alls. And so it's a very turn off. So it's like worrisome, like, I have to work with them. I really don't want to invest with them, kind of stuff like that. So if you're open and flexible and, saying, I don't have all the answers, it would be great to listen to some of the advisors or some of the investors, what you guys have to kind of put what your input is and see how we can grow together. Because at the end of the day, it really is a marriage. And like, I'm continuing to speak with all my portfolio companies as much as possible. And some of the companies that I really don't want to speak with, and it's because they're so stubborn and it's just awkward for me to speak with them. But at the end of the day, if they're kind of basically have a really good attitude, it's whether they have a subpar idea but the team is great, I think many of the investors will do a second take on them.
Yeah, I finding that magic of an engineer that works well with a marketer, like just the connection and the chemistry that can exist is in itself like kind of a good timing and a miracle for them to even connect at the time where the market is. But I love that you said about having good attitude, because I think today so many young founders really look up to people like an Elon Musk and a Steve Jobs, and they think it's okay for me to act this way because people who have done big things have carried this same attitude. But unless
don't get me wrong, like if you're at Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, it's cool. It's like you're visionary, and I'll listen to you. But if you're not, and most of the founders are not, so I mean that's the case. But right away, I mean you could just, if these are visionary, and I do have some CEOs that are kind of similar in that way. So that's why I let them be, and and as soon as they talk, they come out very arrogant, know-it-all. But at the end of the day, it's like, wow, that guy knows what he's talking about, like where he wants to go at the end of the day. And so, yeah, but it'd be cool if they were humble too. But
yeah, got it. I get it. Thanks, Michael. Darren or Jason, if you want to take it next. If you want me to repeat the question, I totally can too.
For me, so you guys have to understand also that there's a pre-investment and then there's something called a post-investment. So when you do get invested by an angel or a VC, you're obligated to report either monthly or quarterly. So if I could give a little bit of advice, the 4 things you guys should always prepare for is the monthly KPIs. So once you could kind of measure month to month, quarter to quarter, so that shows you how your business is doing, especially in numbers. And like I think Michael mentioned, or maybe Darren, I think you want to see like 3x a year, right? So you want to see that you guys are progressing. The second part is pretty much overall business updates. So for example, let's say you have some marketing planned or some sales promotion coming up, or you guys are launching a product soon, I don't know. So just keeping the investors informed of the business updates that are happening. The third one, which is in my opinion the most important, is who you hired or who you are hiring, because every person, especially in early startup stage, is very, very important. And then as a CEO, your job is to hire the best people. You got to convince them somehow. So that's the third one. And the third one is I call that AOB, or all other business. So this is where you can
business.
All other business.
All other business.
Yeah. So this is where you could kind of, if you're doing well, you could leverage that and be like, hey, Michael, I need your help, like hiring this guy, or and just keeping the investor or the board updated, and just keep them accountable. That way they can help you in the areas that you need. And like Michael mentioned, I'm sure same with Darren, you're going to mention this too, but yeah, it's when you have founders or the team that's kind of complaining or blaming on something, or just being really emotional, it's really hard to kind of work with them. So like for us, when those investor meetings comes up, we want to kind of help you guys, right? But if it's a point where it's like, oh man, how can I do this on Zoom instead of meeting them, right? That's a bad sign. So if there are problems that you cannot control, like for example COVID and such, just try to find like different ways. Try to research other companies that are doing it differently, and then just bounce off ideas. Just being blaming on something doesn't help, but just showing that you're proactive, trying to find different ways to solve this, shows that that you're working really, really hard.
Thank you. The 3 points. So reporting on a monthly cadence on how the status is of the business. I know point number 3 was hiring the right people, all of their business, but very, very important. What was point number 2?
Sorry, so point number 1 is KPIs. So it's month to month or quarter to quarter progression in numbers. Okay. So number 2 will be business updates. So let's say you're opening an app or launching something. Number 3 is HR. Like if you have to let go of someone too, make sure you report in the HR section. And 4 is AOB. Or
okay. Gotcha. I'm just making it easier for you guys taking notes. Okay, Darren, you haven't spoken yet.
So the question is to get prepared for the first pitch. Is that right?
Yes. Well, best practices you've seen in startup to pitch for you, and if you can match the worst practices.
Okay, so when you want to raise capital from a VC, and of course the most important thing, the first thing beforehand, you have to have your data room ready. So you can have it shared across to the VC. Whenever you go to the pitch, once it's done, they will ask you to share your data room. You have it ready, and you don't have to rush to set it up. So in the data room, you need to have like your legal documents, incorporation, financial model, pitch deck, cap table. Have all these prepared beforehand, before you start reaching out to investors. And then when you reach out to investors, you need to know, because you need to research the VCs that you are approaching, because different VCs have different mandates. Like big angels, we invest from seed to Series A stage, and then Jason have earlier stage. Michael has from early to the late stage as well. So every investor is different industries, different geographical region. So you need to research them, and also to check on their portfolio companies, because they may have invested in your competitors. And when that happens, they may reach out to you just to know more about your business, and then share your deck across to their portfolio companies to tell them what's happening in the ecosystem. So this is something that you have to look out for before you actually reach out to the VC. And then once you are in the pitch itself, This one, I guess, is the standard thing, but one of the most biggest problem that I see is that a lot of founders, they know a lot of things, much smarter than me. But the thing is, this is also the reason why they put so much information on their deck. And then it's just so messy, like what Michael said at the beginning, it's not structured. But if you can simplify it to make it as simple as possible until even your grandma or someone old, someone elderly can understand, yeah, then that would be a very great, clean and simple slide and help us to understand what is the top 3 reasons why we should invest in you, right? And then after that, the risk, the bad practices, I guess, yeah, like Jason and Michael has said, the bad, you need to have an open mindset. Don't be so stubborn. I mean, sometimes stubbornness is good. If you are an expert in the field, sometimes you're right, but you're not always right. So be open to changes, a little bit of stubbornness, a little bit of openness, to have in your personality, to listen to all the different information that you gather from VCs, from friends, from other experts, and then come down to your own conclusion. But don't think that you're always right as well. Yeah. So these are some of the red flags. Yeah, I guess that's one of the biggest red flags that you have to look out for.
I love that. Thank you so much, Darren. I want to give the audience time to go back to their tables, like get to talk with you each individually in smaller groups. So the last question that I have for you gentlemen, if you can answer it within like 45 seconds, just so we can wrap up on time, is what is next? Like what's next for you personally or professionally? Something you're currently looking forward to and excited about.
And that's a hard question.
Is it an uneventful time, Jason?
Now for me, I think I'll share something that can maybe help. So I understand that there are a lot of early stage startups and founders here. So I'm going to share you guys a link. But so if you guys have time, try to go here and then learn everything about venture capital and how it works. And it's all free. So once you learn this, you'll kind of get a glimpse of how the structures work, including term sheets, stock options, everything, all the details you need to know. But I guess for me, it's a very exciting time for everyone because we had COVID last year, and then now people are preparing for post-COVID, and then I have personally seen a lot of new trends happening. It's been very interesting. So I kind of want to see how the trend goes in the next 3 to 6 months. There's a lot of new VCs that were formed in Korea, so there's gonna be a lot of money that's gonna be invested here and there. So just looking forward to what's gonna happen, not just in Korea but worldwide. And then, hopefully, we make a good bet on a couple of them. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't even get to the trends piece. I really think we need to do a part 2 to this conversation. That there was so many more questions that I want to ask and the audience wants to ask, but. Michael and Darren, what is next for you guys in your personal or professional worlds?
I really am looking forward to this COVID kind of situation, kind of relaxing to a certain degree. I really miss traveling. I really miss going to Southeast Asia and kind of networking and seeing what they're doing. I think Korea is very dynamic, but so is Southeast Asia. And I think on a kind of career, personal goal combined, where I'm hoping when it is relaxed, we finally get to open up a Singapore office, and then
nice.
I'll be for the kind of medium long term kind of situated there. So I'm looking forward to that, but I don't know how this COVID situation, even with the vaccine, will kind of impact everything at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have always wanted to go to Singapore. So if you guys do decide to open an office, I will definitely visit in the future. ETNL Singapore.
Kind of intersect because what I do, I truly love. So I live and breathe the startup and VC industry. I'll be here for the long term. Yeah, so happy to be connected with anyone, happy to help out, especially in the APAC region or
Thank you, Marion. Okay. Marta dropped all of your LinkedIns in the chat. If you're on any other social platform that you prefer people meet you on, be it Twitter, Clubhouse, or Instagram, go ahead and drop your social channel in the chat yourself. And while you do that, I'm going to invite my co-host back to the stage. Marta, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm Martha. I think most of you have seen me, heard me before. I just want to make a few announcements about Seoul Startup. So first and foremost, if you're not a member of Seoul Startups community, please join so you can stay up to date with all the events that we're bringing to you. Second of all, we have another thing coming up this week. Woo! So we're helping Asan Nanon Foundation, one of the biggest NGOs here in Korea, to run a program called Asan Sanghwe, which is a program for North Korean resettlers, South Koreans, and foreigners that are interested in setting up on the entrepreneurship journey. It's a 9-month program that takes you from like a entrepreneurship boot camp all the way to an acceleration and early stage funding phase. So if you want to embark on this journey, check out the link that I am sending right now. And we will be having an AMA later this week on Thursday. So if you have questions, if you want to learn more about the program, please sign up in this link. And if you have any questions, like I said, I'll be in the lounge for some time. So bump me up as well. We will be sending you off to the lounge right now. So Jason, Michael, and Darren will be sitting at their respective tables with their names written there. So if you want to ask them more questions, feel free to join those tables and talk. Kyla, any last comments?
Yes, I just want to say the dialogue continues, but huge thank you to Jason, Michael, and Darren for your time, and just the entire audience for dialing in tonight. We really appreciate it. But we'll see you at the networking.
Bye.
Bye.